It said
Hi,
it's
Lori.
being recorded.
Hello. Never done that before. Maybe it's new feature.
All right, they're all on.
How are you?
All right, so we'll start the meeting. Call to order, Ryland,
Oh, Dana Bergner.
Lori Novak.
and we have a motion for the agenda just to talk about our wastewater ordinance sewage disposal code.
Motion to approve agenda.
Second.
Second. I'll second that, Ryland. All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Aye. That's approved. Okay, so everybody should have a copy, or did get a copy of the final draft that Mike sent Friday morning, and copies there on your packet. So should we just open it up for general discussion, or any preference to that? I've got a couple comments. I'll start the discussion. And I think these are very simple things, but I just want to make sure they're in 51092. I read through this and I was wondering why we needed this. Because if we stipulate our annexation uses city water and sewer,
That's what I asked last time,
why would we want a
because not everybody's being
lot of
hooked,
extra work?
not everybody's hooked up. Right away.
Yeah, we answered that question.
Mhm.
So there could be septic systems into infinity on Elko. I mean, basically what your ordinance says is you have to hook up. If you don't, you pay a fee. So people could continue to pay fees. Now, I think in theory, when their septic systems need to be replaced, I don't know how the permitting works, but I assume they apply for a permit, they won't get a permit at that point. I assume, and they'll be forced to connect. So eventually when their system breaks down, could be 10 years or 15 years before that happens though. So, I mean,
So outside the city limits would be, in my impression, it's anything outside city limits would be annexed. But there are areas like the township.
so where are you seeing annexation in the 51092? That says pumping
Very
required.
first line, without annexation.
I don't see that in the first line.
I'm sorry,
I don't see that in the first line, Ryland.
the city may only allow connection to utility systems of the city of Orinoco without annexation.
Yeah, what's the section of that? I know that section.
Oh, 510092.
Oh, 09.
Oh.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
We're on 9-2.
Yeah.
Add that zero there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Chris wrote this, my boss wrote this. So that's an issue. Let me just read it quick.
And the only
Yeah,
caveat in the whole thing is down at the bottom is point number 4. That there are unique circumstances to the property justifying pre-annexation, so.
and then if you go on the next page, it says, in the city's best interest for the benefit of the public health, safety, and welfare of the city and its taxpayers. So this whole section was, I highlighted this before we even started this. Because I had talked to you about this too privately.
Yeah, probably.
Previously, but basically when you extend sewer services into a township, that will hurt or diminish your ability. Is there people on or?
I don't know, but I don't know if they can see if that's on. There you go.
City.
So that will hurt or diminish your ability to annex, not just those parcels. It'll very much hurt your ability to annex the parcels to whom you extend sewer service prior to annexation. And the theory goes, so if they petition for annexation, that's fine,
Mhm.
but the township could contest that. And if there's a contested case annexation, the logic goes this way. The main reason you have the ability to annex by ordinance in Minnesota is it makes sense based on provision of services. But if you're already providing services to them before you annex, what's the administrative law judge gonna say? Well, what are you talking about? You need to annex them to provide them services. You're already doing that. So you obviously don't need to annex them because you already gave it to them. And so once you start doing these agreements with township parcels, you want them to annex into the city. I think the reason, so then we wrote, get to the next thing about the Orinoco Estates property. So we don't really want that property to be annexed, but,
It can't be,
well,
because it's part of the Rochester Ultimate Service area,
okay, so,
That,
but that may be not the issue, I don't.
yeah, but, okay, so that one's different. We needed to write something here that would basically allow you to, because there's an equal protection thing, so, okay, so you're gonna give them sewer services, but not other parcels, that's what they're gonna say, that aren't the trailer park. So we wanted to write this where it had some language where there was some standards, objective standards where you could find facts as to why a trailer park, large trailer park, inside the city wouldn't be in the interest of the city, which it probably wouldn't be. It doesn't pay much property taxes. It's adds density, strange density. It's not, we don't have any zoning for manufactured home parks. So that's why this was written. It's basically saying, in a nutshell, if you want services, you have to annex first. Unless, and then we have some unless language, because if we didn't have that unless language, then, but you then give the agreement to Orinoco Estates, it's like, well, wait a minute, though, your ordinance says you can't do that, you just did it. So this is to protect your ability to annex other parcels. I'm not worried about the trailer park, I'm worried about the ones, like in phase 1B, I think there's parcels that are in the township right across but right next to the city, aren't there?
Oh, like-
Surrounded by the city, over by 12th Street.
Yeah,
Like
well,
3 streets.
in one of your webinar presentations, I appeared remotely and you said that, and I wrote that down and said, wait a minute, if we're gonna provide them services, you have to annex those parcels then. If they're right, I mean, if it's like city, township, and they're right across the street, if you ever want to annex those parcels, it's a forever decision. There's case law going all the way to the United States Supreme Court on provision of utilities. You will not be able to shut their utilities off once you provide them. It's necessary for them to live, so. But I think, I was kind of against, this plan was made in the parcel with the trailer, the manufactured home park. I don't think that's great, but I think you can fix it by having this ordinance. And then in the agreement that we're gonna draft with them, it's gonna say things like, you have a strict cap on effluent limit. Like, we will give you services to this cap, or for this many users, or both. And any increase in that will have to be negotiated with the city. And then you'll have this, if they ever want to expand, which I think they want to, right? I've heard discussion of that. Then you'll have this ordinance and you can address the ordinance. You won't have any contractual obligation to expand their sewer services. So Chris is like the annexation expert, and he's looked at this whole issue privately for you. And this is what we're doing to fix it. So, nothing's broken, but to help you in the future, reserve your right to annex parcels. The last thing you want, there are cities like this, Caledonia is like this. You live in Caledonia. So I hope you don't live in this, you don't live in the township. do
I
you?
grew up in the country, so.
Okay. This is not in the country. This is like right outside their city, right outside. There is a housing development. And you've got about, 35 or 40 homes not paying city taxes and using all the city services. And people are like, well, why do they get a library card? Why do they get to ride on the streets but not pay to improve the streets? Why do they get all this stuff? Because they're in the township and they didn't annex them. So that creates real difficulties when you do that. So
Okay,
you want to make sure that
good explanation.
this is important. This is one of the most important sections. I think nobody asked about it, but I think it's Chris approved and he drafted it. So that's.
So before we continue on, I make a motion that we adopt City of Orinoco Ordinance 2021-06.
Second.
Lori, second. Okay, continue our discussion here, so.
So I'm glad you brought that up. That was carefully drafted and we thought about that. I drafted it, Chris redrafted it, drafted it again. So this gives you a good ability to annex. I'm not gonna say, extending that to that township parcel is going to not negatively affect the city's ability to annex, because it might, but this is the best we can do to,
Well, we have a group of homes in the township within the borders of city limits on 4 sides.
just don't give them sewer service or water service unless they connect, or have you already given water service?
No.
Okay, on the next page, we talked about this 51-020. And I just want to make sure that, and this is the water system and when it was set up, that 2014 date, just for clarification, I thought that was 3 years. Should it be the 2015? Was that the 3-year period back then when we set it up? If that's what it's referring to?
Which, are you looking at A or B?
Part B, I'm sorry.
I think that's a carryover from
Yeah.
what was the ordinance.
I
So
copied
it was
that.
2014, okay.
Aye.
And in 2051.021, I think we touched base on this. We were talking about a year after connection. We also talked about 18 months. In that first sentence, shall be connected to the city sewer system within 1 year of connection. And I remember we were talking about 18 months, just so there's 2 seasons, 2 construction seasons.
Yeah, and I mean, that was in the original, very first email or, report. I think it's even Joe's like feasibility study, says 12 to 18 months, like a range.
Okay.
So I just picked a year. If you want to change it after, if you adopt this and want to change that, the
That's what we talked about at the last meeting was.
Well, and
18 months.
I made
Change
notes
it.
of it, but I didn't think there was a decision made as to whether that's what you wanted to do. So I was unclear if that was a decision that was that, and we can always, I mean, that's an easy amendment. In a month, we can amend that to make it 18 months if that's what you want. I mean, that'll affect,
I just feel like that's gonna give them 2 construction seasons. It's all dependent on when we start and when we finish, of course, but. Because there's a lot of homes to connect, and I don't want somebody coming back and saying I can't get a contractor because there's 100 homes doing it right now. So just a little more grace period because there are over 200 homes that have to be connected.
So the way Mike's written it, I think, is think about this. So they essentially, there is 2 years from the date that service is available to them before they will begin to be fined. Is that correct, Mike?
no,
That's what I kind of remember.
no.
Or from,
Well, it used to be, so the way I had the first draft, there was confusion. Lori wrote an email about the confusion between the number, you got 1 year, then you got 180 days. And so the way I had originally written it, it was 1 year, you had to connect 1 year.
Joe, you should have one of your desks there.
I have it, I'm just
Okay.
looking for the section.
It's 021, 51-021.
Right.
So the way I had originally drafted it was there's 2 separate dates. You couldn't fine anybody or fee anybody until 1 year after service became available and also until after you gave them a 180-day written notice. My theory there was, look, we're not going to send the notices on the very day that it's available. And so that'll add months to it. I mean, and so then you could have up to 18 months or possibly in between 12 and 18, something like 14 months. If cities, because there would be 2 separate criteria. So now it doesn't say that. Now all it says is you have to connect 1 year after it becomes available and I'm paraphrasing this, but as determined by notice. So 1 year after you get a notice, you got to connect. That's what this says now. So there'll be I assume like substantial completion, or there'll be some date in the construction documents. Usually it's called substantial completion, where it'll be complete. And then the 1 year doesn't start on that date. The 1 year starts whenever we send them a notice to connect. And so what you might do, I mean, so the city has discretion there. I mean, you could just not change this ordinance, but just choose not to send those notices. In hopes people connect, if that makes sense. I mean, that's why I originally drafted it with the extra half year, but, you can
No,
change
either
it.
the only thing I see with that approach is that either we forget to send them the notice, or they know up front from that completion date, they have a year and a half after the 18 months after that.
Well, I mean, it's a giant
Just
sewer,
don't say
it's a giant sewer project in town. I think everybody knows about it. I mean,
Oh, yeah, I know that, but it's just,
yeah, I mean,
So
yeah,
being that we can't change anything tonight, right?
no, that's
I
right.
mean, we can't change anything on this tonight at all. I feel like we should take the vote. I feel like we should adjourn, make notes, and then when we need to start adopting, like actually using this, once everything is ready to go, I think we should get it back on the calendar with notes of each individual's thing, because I mean, we're missing 2 people. We're not gonna be able to make any decisions tonight as far
we have a
as,
quorum.
but we can't change this.
I mean, I think you could make a small change to an ordinance if you saw a typo and just put it in your motion, and then you would adopt it with that change, but I'm not redrafting an ordinance like this in an open meeting. So if it's anything
No,
substantial,
okay.
I mean, that's just not realistic to be able to do.
Yeah, we can just make a list of what but we can't sit here and discuss it after we adjourn.
True. I mean, if you wanted to take 10
Right,
minutes.
I'm just,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
think
just
Lori's
feel
right.
like what we're doing now is great, but we're not gonna make any big changes. We're not gonna,
Yeah, these are-
and all of this stuff is going to be looked at again once we start rolling the sewer out.
And you make a good point, because I think it's important that our water and sewer committee see it too.
Sure.
Because they have not seen this ordinance either, and I'm sure people would like to comment on it. We still have, if you're okay with that,
Oh, I don't care at all.
I would not expect
Yeah,
big changes, but just.
I was expecting it just to be a vote, no discussion, because
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know.
And because this has to get turned in.
That's
I
why
mean,
that's why we're doing it
We
tonight.
don't want this to go back to the drawing board even for little changes, because we gotta get it moving.
Yeah, I mean, I redrafted this, sent it to Joe. I redrafted it again and then redrafted it again because I had, it's very detailed. This particular section is very, very detailed. And I think now, I mean, there was like misplaced modifiers in it and it just didn't, now I think it makes sense and it's clear. We got out of that, we had that June 1, 2024 date, which we did away with to make it simpler. So this is simple, but it's not, it's as simple as it gets. It's 1 year from the date you get a notice. Then you get feed. That's what it says. If you want it to say something else, we can make it do that. I mean, that's fine, but I think that's a policy choice. You don't really need to ask me that. You can just tell me that,
Joe, I mean, I think what we need to ask, is there anything that would prevent us from getting funding in this ordinance?
No.
Then we should probably,
I think the
Adoption.
reality is
Just all-
as we kind of move down the road, even a year from now, things are gonna come to light that we're gonna want to tweak.
Right.
This is a complicated ordinance and there is no way we're gonna get all this right.
right, like we need to, the late fees, I mean, we need to dig into that.
Well, that, yeah,
Later.
That's on a separate ordinance,
that's,
so.
that's a whole separate ordinance and so that will take time. I mean, that will be like,
Right.
we asked the MPCA that and I was like, well, if we have to do that by today, I mean, we'll do it, but it'll be a mess. So.
Yeah.
But you should really plan, maybe do it all at the same time and just say, we'll have the fee schedule adopted and the ordinance revisions done at the same 2 meetings,
Mhm.
like
Once
whenever.
we adopt our fees, which we'll do in a resolution this year, usually in August, September
Yeah, so,
timeframe.
and you do your water fees that way too?
Yeah.
So August, September, it might be worth, I mean, I'm really suggesting you do a fee ordinance instead of a resolution. So it wouldn't take too much to do all your fees, not just your water and sewer.
Right.
But I think what would be good is if we get the format set up for that in August and September and do the exact same thing you normally do, just do it by ordinance. Then you'll have an ordinance structure and we can just plug in fees. I mean, all the other cities do this and they just add a fee, adopt an ATV ordinance, add a fee, it's on a chart and you just add it in. So doing that work now would make it easier for the sewer ordinance later.
Oh, I agree.
Especially when there aren't that many, so.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. We'll go ahead and vote on it.
And if you want to email me your thoughts now, so
I'll do that.
we don't lose track of them and you lose
Start
them.
documenting it.
Yeah,
All right.
We already made a motion, so I think we just need to vote.
Right, so via voice vote. All those in favor of the ordinance 2021-06, signify by the voice vote. Aye.
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 Opposed, no. It's approved. And
I think you should separately vote on the,
what's that?
I think you should separately vote on the summary.
The summary,
Yeah.
a second.
You could do one motion with both, but just vote on separate, make it clear.
We'll include this with the motion. Just to-
No, I would just do another motion.
Okay, all in favor of the summary of publication of ordinance 2021? Excuse me, I make a motion that we approve the summary publication of city ordinance 2021-06.
Second.
Lori seconds that. Any comments or discussion? Pretty straightforward. Is there a time frame for this to be published? Next meeting? Next
You guys
meeting
publish them, I don't know.
On a Wednesday?
Yeah, we gotta have everything in by Friday,
Okay.
So we can get it in.
Friday at noon.
So,
Any
the-
other-
yeah, so the ordinance is effective today upon adoption, which is rare. I've never done that before, but you can do it. So it's adopted today, it just won't be published till later.
Right, which is the way our city works, paper- newspaper, so it's not daily, so. Just one little typo area of that between City Hall and 115, just for the spacing there. It all runs together
Oh, yeah, right here.
before we sign it.
Got it.
All those in favor by voice vote, say aye.
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 That's approved. All right, I think that's on our agenda.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And Lori. Any other comments? Jody, anything else?
Got a couple things for you to sign related to this, so I can just send it in tomorrow if you will. Carolyn,
Sure.
sign the ordinance and
Can you sign that one, Ryland?
oh, that, yeah, that's
All in
what you said.
favor of motion
Oops.
to adjourn, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
So this